My kids know how competitive I am. They've had to play basketball and cricket and rugby against me since they were that tall, you know. They know they can't win. I always thought I was lazy. And then I realised I'd never been lazy. I just worked really hard at sport.
He's been described as the hard man of New Zealand cricket. It's my pleasure to welcome Dion Nash.
To get good at anything on any level is lonely. I got scared at a certain point of optimum because I realised how much of a trade-off I was making, because I must admit I was a little bit nervous about coming out of the closet as a moisturiser user. It's proven that boredom is good for you, and I think that one of the things about social media, you're never bored, right? And TikTok is the worst, right? I remember I spent my first $50,000 on and I remember just walking around Auckland like in a daze, sick in my stomach, like going, how am I going to tell my wife? How am I going to tell my wife?
Based on what you know about it, would you still do it?
Mandate.
Welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing's off the table. Tonight's guest is from Tāmaki Makaurau, originally from Dargaville. The man is also a former international cricketer who was also the captain of the Black Caps in 1999. The man is also well renowned for his bowling as well, as a medium pace bowler with his right arm. And the man also has taken 93 test wickets. And so in a career spanning of 1992 all the way to 2001. The man has also done 32 tests and also 81 one-day internationals. The man's also the first one in history to take 10 wickets and make 50 runs in a match in 1994. But the man is more than just that. The man is a businessman, an entrepreneur who has pretty much started his own skincare brand called Triumph and Disaster. And so the man is also more than just that as well. He's a father, amazing husband, and has an amazing story to share. Please put your hands together for the man himself, Dion Nash!
Oh. Wow, thank you. That was a great intro.
Oh, hey, brother. No, thank you. Thank you for coming, Uzo. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's a privilege. Like I said before, early on, we had a bit of a chat because we grew up. You were a household name growing up back in the 90s, and we loved Dion Nash. And obviously, you kind of, I remember you as this real fiery character when you're bowling, and when you get a wicket, you would just do that kind of dance and you're jumping up and down, and you would just kind of really rev them up the opposition. So, but I guess we could start off with cricket, but instead of starting off with cricket, brother, I think because Triumph and Disaster, tell us, because has business always been something that you kind of aspired to, or was it something that just came by chance?
Oh, no, totally not aspired to it. I had no ambition to do business, actually. It was all about sport. I was just a sporty kid growing up, you know. In Dargaville, there was nothing else to do, so I'm the baby of 6 kids, so there was all my older brothers and sisters had all left home and gone away, and actually, the next sister who's older, she's unfortunately handicapped. So it was just me and her at home, and so I literally first had a ball and a bat. that was my thing to go and so any wall I could find, I'd go and hit against it. But no, business was not my ambition really. I was sort of more arty sort of kid. Ended up going to Auckland Grammar for 1 year, and all my mates at Auckland Grammar went to university, so I was like, well, maybe I should go to university. So I went down. I was just trying to buy time to play cricket for New Zealand. You know, that was my hope. And so I thought, if I go to university, it'll buy me 4 years from my parents. You know, or 3 actually. It was a 3-year degree, but it took me 4. So I went down there, and yeah, that was a sort of a bit of a change, because I was like, oh, I can start to think, and actually I learned how to think at university, which I hadn't done. I'd just been learning by rote up until that point, you know. And I remember fell into the right classes, which was sociology sort of focused and anthropology and all that. And yeah, so I actually ended up doing this great degree, which then after playing sport sort of lent itself to marketing, I guess, you know. And then after sport, I met the guys who had started 42 Below Vodka, guys Jeff Ross and Grant Baker and those guys, and just because I guess at that stage I was a known name, and I had nothing to do, and I ran into them and they said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I made up some cock and bull story that I was going to make a water brand from my father's. My father had found this spring, and they were like, "Really? Because we want to do a water, and you should bring us in your business plan." And I was like, "Oh." So we went home. It was on a Friday. I went home and I spoke to my mum. Spoke to my wife, or a girl. Benny, I don't even know we were married then. Maybe we were. And I said, "Oh, I've got to show them a business plan." And we're like, what's in a business plan? What's in a business plan? So we spent the whole weekend trying to write this business plan. Went in on Monday, handed it over, and said, "Oh, this is what I was thinking." And they took one look, and we're like, "Okay, well, why don't we put that to one side and we'll work on it together, shall we?" It was like, so that was my intro to business, and I sort of fell into it from that in a way, which was good luck, but it was just good people, like it could have been any number of paths, but they were good people doing some interesting, exciting things, young entrepreneurial Kiwis trying to break into a big market and breaking all the rules. Didn't feel like boring business that I'd imagined, it was exciting, and we were all working really hard, but I guess, so I sort of, that was my business 101.
Man, well, tell us, because skincare, and obviously you kind of exploiting the lack of moisturizer in terms of our men, and so brother, tell us, because often people think, oh, skincare, and I think we had a bit of a chat saying that often we don't, as men, we don't kind of, skincare, we don't talk about skincare or moisturizer. So why skincare?
Yeah, well, I worked for 42 Below, which was vodka, and I did that for about 3 years with the guys who started it, and then they got bought by Bacardi, which was this big American corporate, and I got this big job with this big title for Bacardi, so I was the marketing director for 42 Below under this big American brand. So I was flying around thinking I was pretty cool, but we had a young family and we're a long way from home, and actually the longer I did it, it felt like we were just pushing booze onto kids, just sort of like, I was just over it. Just didn't feel like it was definitely not exciting anymore in a big corporate, and I had learnt what I needed to learn about, I guess, business at that level, and and so I just thought, I need to get out. They've asked me to move to London, and I was like, I need to go home, see my kids, and spend some time, and help out with the family. So, with all of that, I just thought, well, but what am I going to do now? And I sort of like thought, well, I was on the plane on the way home, and the last meeting I was in New York, this guy had a full arm tattoo, waistcoat on. He's sort of the coolest guy in the room, and he, halfway through the meeting, pulled out like a hand cream. It was a woman's hand cream, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Anyway, he pulls his hand cream out, and I was like, anyway, it was in my thought the whole way home, and I thought, oh man, if I could just make that a little cooler, that it was, packaging was a bit edgier and it meant something to me, then I wouldn't have felt so icky about it, him using it. But I guess it was my problem, not his, right? Anyway, so that was that what led to it. And in cricket, because you're in the sun the whole time, so I had used moisturisers like since I was about 18, just because you just have to have it. You're out there all day, and it just helps save you from feeling tired and sort of ready the next day. So so I had a bit of, I guess, industrial knowledge about it and how to use them, and I could see men weren't using them, but I sort of thought, well, we're probably due for a change. I must admit, I was a little bit nervous about coming out of the closet as a moisturiser user. It's like any street cred I might have built up over the years was definitely going to get thrown out the window. So but it's okay. Now no one even asks any questions, right? They're just like, yeah, what do you use? But it wasn't the case sort of 12 or 13 years ago when I started.
Wow, man. And it's fun. It's interesting because now you're 400 stores worldwide, from Singapore to USA now. Yeah,
we've got distributors in Germany, the UK, the US, Canada, and Australia. Yeah, we do sell a little bit in Singapore and different places, but the main markets are those ones, and then New Zealand obviously, and as well as selling online. So, I mean, it is great, and it sounds all good, but like most of the time you're just paddling under the water trying to stay afloat and going, what's next, and every good bit, like you sign up a distributor and you have that moment of like celebration, and then you realize, I've just signed myself up for a whole lot of more work and pain. So I have to, back up my promises. But but it's been a fun journey, and I guess I'm grateful for it, having played sport, to have something post sport to put my passion, or to be passionate about, and to put my energy into, because I think that's that's probably one of my biggest beliefs is, you have to be feeling useful and putting exercising your talents on some level, otherwise I think it can be a bit tiring, right?
Yeah, exactly, man, exactly.
That's so awesome. Oh my goodness. I'm just thinking, have your kids tried the products?
Yeah, they're my test bunnies. Yeah. No, they're well versed. They're well versed on it all. Although I've noticed my daughter of late has been sneaking other brands in, and I'm not cool. My products are not cool anymore. She's worked out that they're for guys, and it's like she's not buying it no more. But she does still use the cleanser and the scrub. I noticed that goes missing out of the shower. It's like my kids are now our kids are now 17, 15 and 13, but my wife and I often reflect, it's like it's sort of gone to, we feel like we've got flatmates again, like it's like they're the worst flatmates ever, because they never fill up the fridge, they never put the water bottle back in, they don't pay any rent. It's like, and like my daughter's like, she'll use it, she's the only one upstairs with my wife and I upstairs, and like I'll literally walk out of the bathroom in the morning and go and get something, and I'll go to walk back in and the door will have shut and the shower's on, and I'm like left sitting outside waiting to access again. I'm like, she's fast. How has this happened? Anyway, I'm sure other people have that.
It must be the Psalm 1 side, I think.
Yeah, that's it.
So I'm intrigued because I'm a woman, and women have always had like skin products. What's the difference between men's skin and female skin? Like, why do you guys need your own?
Is there a difference, or?
Not really. No, a little bit. Like we tend to. I mean, we have slightly bigger pores generally, so that, and we're a bit more. We tend to be more oily and sweaty. So a bit, but that can quite often be through the jobs that we're doing or the activities we're into.
Yeah.
And those are big generalizations, but but how we think about it is different for sure. So like a guy will use, they might know they need a moisturizer because they've got dry skin, or they might know they've got oily skin and they want to clean it, but they'll want it on and gone. They don't want the drama or the ceremony so much of it, and don't want to be reminded of what they're doing so much. It's more of a process that they want to be really quick and easy with. Whereas my take on quite often with women's cosmetics is it's more of a passion for some, and it's actually like a much more personal and thought through sort of like endeavor. And so they'll have their favorite cleanser, but they'll have the hot one of the day that everyone's talking about they have to try, and then they'll have the one that gives that they use on the weekend or whatever. And so there's like a more of a passionate sort of approach to it, I think. Whereas guys will be, once they find something that works and they know how to use it, they'll stick with it and they're loyal, and it's just rinse and repeat.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Because I know for us, depends who's marketing it, Who's in the ad?
So
but
much.
Cindy Crawford.
That's true.
Oh, actually, maybe not.
Yeah, not anymore. Oh, but
now you're showing your age, eh?
Stop. These guys are like, who's Cindy Crawford, man? If only you knew.
Oh, Cindy Crawford, eh? But that's another podcast.
Yeah.
But it's so cool because obviously if you're being cricket and sports, and I think you mentioned something early on, Dion. You said you're quite the creative kind of individual. and quite fortunate that you're able to had another outlet, after professional sports or athlete. And I just wanted to ask you, because you being a professional athlete, and a lot of people who kind of finish their career or retire, and you may have seen it yourself, or maybe you've experienced it. What's it like for some of these athletes? Because sometimes when you go from the transition of being an athlete to now just being someone else that is not in the limelight, that people don't see anymore, how's it been for some of those guys who have left the sport, or also more so you yourself?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Well, I'll start right back. I think you get into sport because you're good at it and you love doing it, and so you fall into this journey that makes you feel good because you're better than the majority of people doing it. You're usually a little bit of a competitive person, so that juice gets sort of flowing as well. And then all of a sudden you make teams, and then people started admiring that you've made these teams, and so there's this sort of like positive feedback loop that pushes you along on that journey. And then the next sort of stage to that is which happened in our era, was you started to earn some money from it, and then it's like, well, hang on, now I'm earning money at quite a young age, and my peers are still doing junior jobs and on their the very start of their careers. So that happens, and then when I retired quite young because I was out through injury. So I was 30 when I retired, and a lot of the people I played with played for another 5 to 8 years, some of them. So I sort of missed out on the big push of professionalism. But that what professionalism does is it's by the end you're in love with the spoils of being good at something, as opposed to the love of what you're good at, or at least that's a danger that can happen. You still love the game and you love competing, but there's all these other things which attach themselves to it, and a part of that is people walking down the street and having people recognize you, or that you hear your name said as they walk past you. So those things are all, they get their hooks into you, and so when it's all whipped away, there's a certain point when you retire, you think you're ready for it, but then you do retire and you go, and for a little while there's an afterglow, but then there's pretty quickly after the next guy that's replaced you, all of a sudden the other person in the media and everyone's raving about their performance and them, and it's like sort of smarts a little bit, and then a few years from that, people aren't even talking about you, and you have to move on. But the game's something you've done since probably 12 years of age until 30, and really but your only ambition has been that, and now all of a sudden at 35 all of your common sense tells you've got to give it up, but it's all tied into all of your being. It's all you've ever thought about, all of you've rated your success upon or your performance upon. So when that's all taken away, it's hard to deal with, And I would say even now, I'm 52 now, I still once or twice a year wake up and go, man, I should have taken more wickets, I was like, if only I hadn't have done that thing. I was like, and so you still think of yourself as that thing that was, now for 22 years ago since I played, so it's super important. I think that I just feel sort of blessed in a way that I fell into a group of people that taught me a new skill, and then I was able to take that experience and turn that into something that I've created and feel passionate about and excited to get up and do. And look, I'm not the world's best entrepreneur, despite your wonderful intro. I'm definitely not the world's best businessman or entrepreneur. I'm like still learning, and I have definite weaknesses of, in terms of that genre of, career, but that's sort of also part of the challenge, I feel like I'm still getting better at things, and I think having something you can keep getting better at is quite important.
It's cool. That's cool. I'm glad you answered that, because I know quite a few people who have kind of left this world and retired, and they're so used, like you're saying, they're used to people talking about them and seeing those highlights and those reels, And sometimes for them, it's hard. It's hard. I can imagine it's very hard for them when they finish all that. And what do I do now? And some of them just go back to normal jobs. Some of them go back to like it can go to a bit of a lull in terms of mental well-being and all that kind of stuff. And so, in terms of talking about mental well-being, how do you kind of sustain all that stuff in terms of when you're having a bad day or going through some hardships or some struggles?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think mental health or mental well-being and wellness, all of these things have become, the conversations of the last decade, really, haven't they? And it's really come to the fore. And, we've always had mental health, haven't we? And there's always been good days and bad days, and everyone's always experienced them. And there's just a sort of scale of it, spectrum of it. I guess that what I've found actually is probably one of my biggest learnings is I'm quite a big personality. And when I played cricket, I was that was a asset, but it could also be a to my own detriment. Like I could lift the whole team through my personality and my enthusiasm, and doing that. But if I was having a bad day, I could really become a black hole as well for the people sitting near me and the thing. And it was easier to hide in a game of sport, because if you're having a bad day, you just go and try harder, or you'd, sometimes if you're on tour, you could just go and watch a movie somewhere and get away. But when you're in where I've found it, I've had to get better coping strategies is in the corporate world, and then in my own office space. And, if you're a big personality and you dominate a room, people will sit back and just stay silent, and that's not what you want in a business or in relationships that are going to help you in business. So I've had to learn, I guess, to moderate that and be aware of it. But also I think if I'm having a bad day, or if I'm just in a bad mood because I'm dealing with a whole bunch of stuff that I can't discuss with my staff, whole bunch of people haven't paid their bills, or there's a big problem with the business that someone that and you're sitting there stewing, and I just have learnt that I'm better off to get up and leave and just go away and deal with it elsewhere and try and get my head straight. But like I think within all of that, where I'm probably most lucky is I've got a great wife who talks, so like she loves conversation, and I think that has brought that out in me, which is one of the things that I was a quiet person because I was the baby of a child. I would solve my own problems, I'd put my back against the wall and I'd be like, take on the world. And whereas my wife is a people person, just naturally. And so I think that that's a really great foil for me, and I've learnt probably the most about how to get myself out of a hole by just talking, because with my wife, if I'm really honest.
That's good. That's good, because I was about to ask, like, how did you get to that point? Because quite often people are looking for tools, and then it's about how, and I think the next question is, how do you learn these tools? Like, where do you access them from? And I was just about to ask, like, how did you learn all of that? And
one tool I think is really important. So we had a guy called Gilbert Noka who came into the cricket team, and he's been with the All Blacks for years now, right? But he started with the cricketers, and I don't know how we let him go to rugby, but anyway we did. But he and I'd done this naturally for years actually. I remember the first great piece of advice. I'd come, because I lived in a small town up north. I came down to Auckland, and I'd never had any real proper coaching. And there's this guy, Harold Whitcomb, who had coached Martin Crowe, who was the best player in the country, right? And I got 1 hour with him at Eden Park, and it was this big deal, one-on-one coaching. And anyway, I was so keen to impress. It was about 16. Go to this hour. At the end of the hour, this guy, old guy, Harold Whitcomb, goes, "Well, Dion, looks like you can play pretty well to me." And I was like, okay. And he goes, the best piece of advice I can give you is you have to learn to be your own best coach. And I was like, okay. And he goes, you know, lots of people, including myself, are going to give you advice. And he said, most of it will be well-meaning, but lots of it will be totally irrelevant or just poor advice for you. But your job is you've got to be your own coach. So you've got to pick what is the good advice for you and what's the bad advice just to let go. And I think at that point he said you should keep a journal. And I was like, okay. And I went home and I got this journal. And so from quite a young age, I've always kept a journal. And, you know, sometimes I'd just write down like a Muhammad Ali quote, you know, or I'd see something on the side of a bus, you know, or even some graffiti, or sometimes it would be like a thought, you know, or a bit of coaching or my results or whatever. But I did that from quite a young age. And I think Gilbert and Noka, when he came into the cricket team, he made us all journal, and he sort of formalized it. And that journaling process and that writing down was a really good way. And he would give us these little bits, because in cricket, it's a very mental game, you know, it's controlling your mental space and holding that thought and keeping out all of the demon thoughts, you know. And but he would say things like, you know, let's deal with the controllables, you know, and let everything else go. And and it was like just single ideas like that was just so powerful that it, you know, you can only manage you can manage, you know. And it's like everything else is just needless worry. And I remember things like that just being super powerful. But I think what made them even more powerful was writing them down and sort of cementing them as ideas and putting them into my own coaching manual. So I think that, you know, I still to this day I still do that. Don't go back and read them really anymore. But I was like, maybe one day I should go back and read them. But I think just the writing down process of an idea. And the other thing that happens is what I find is if I'm in a bad headspace, or even if I'm in a good one, like by the time you're halfway through writing down the idea, you're like, oh man, this is so dumb, you know. And it's like you realize you're writing it down and someone can read it, and it's like, far out, you know. Write it off to the end, and like yeah, and you could, you know, I always write a note to myself. You can tell I wasn't in good space today, you know.
Perspective, hey.
Yeah. But like, yeah, but you know, right. So yeah, writing it down or talking. But yeah, going back to, you know, Bernie and my wife, I just am grateful that I've found a partner who has had this natural want to engage with humans, you know, like, and I think that's what we're social beings, right? And so that's the problem I do think with the internet and, you know, social media and all of that. I think I fear for what in 100 years they'll look back and go, what this overlay of technology, which we're still in the experiment stage of, right? You know, it's only been like 10 years for the internet or whatever it's been, like 20, you know, it's not old. And so 10 years for the iPhone or whatever, but like maybe the internet's a bit longer.
Yeah, a little bit.
But you know, we're in this sort of like, you know, beta phase of like this, you know, social network that we won't really know what being able to lock away in our own bedrooms or in our own. Yeah, I was in the sushi shop yesterday, and I looked around as I was waiting for my sushi. There would have been 20 people in there, and they're all sitting down, heads down on the phone. Someone could have walked naked, like literally. Truly, I literally thought, what could you walk through this shop doing without no one ever? Trust me, it's too far away from Summerford. I don't want to get this white body up.
You get this.
They would have noticed that. They would have noticed that.
But you're right. But you're absolutely right. The relationships people have today is more with the screen or a device, and that's getting in the way of what you said, us being social beings, and us being able to connect on all those various levels. And the more this is up in front of us, the less we're able to find this social connection that does so much to us, mentally, spiritually, all of that. So you're absolutely right. And do you think it's a generational thing? Like we're a bit more alert And they're younger, they're not?
No, I fight that thought always, because I think often there's talk about, Generation X or millennials being lazy in the workplace and all that, and I think that and I'm not saying that your thinking is lazy, but I think that thinking in that instance is lazy. I think there's disengaged or lazy people of all generations, and sort of like, but you have to work with staff, for example, and I'm probably going a long way around, but you have to pull people into the engagement. You have to have a system that's engaging to them and brings them in to pull all of that out. Otherwise, they will revert to whatever. But I think we're all a little bit there's an antisocial block in all of us, right? And what this thing is feeding is us to do that. It's like, whereas it's much harder to be social to someone you don't know and don't really even think you want to know, that where you would look at someone and go, well, what can this person give me? Or they don't even look like I'd have anything in common with them, so why would I want to talk to them? So I can just look here now, It's like, so we're giving everyone that out and that excuse, and that's the problem, like, because you'll take it. All of us naturally will take it, if given it, I think, and you have to fight that. Well, not all of us, but a large majority. Yeah,
I like that. I like what you've just said, because you're right. We have this tendency to fall back on. I don't know if it's a stereotype or just what researchers will find this in this 5-year period, and just the way they label different generations. And the problem in that is then, rather than dealing with an individual and getting to know them at an individual level, and I loved what you also said, it's about us learning about them so we can find ways to engage them, pull them in. But if we hold on to millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, Alpha generation, if we start moving with that sort of a filter, we're not we're just going to discard them without getting to know them, and that's so dangerous. You're absolutely right.
It's totally, it doesn't help at all, right? I mean, it's one of those. It's it's a marketing. Somebody in an ideation session somewhere has made it up, right? And it's like, I always loved my first ever ideation session that I had to go to, and I was like, is this what is an idiot? Is this full of idiots, or what is it? But it's like,
you're right. You're right, because a lot of the stuff that we learn are things ploys that they do from a marketing context, eh? Yeah. They want to sell like a cereal box, then they will say certain things, and
we've all bought into it, right? We're all proudly Generation X, or no, I wouldn't do that. You didn't have albums like we had albums in our day, and it's like, but we didn't. The flip side is you don't have to sit through a whole B-side of an album, which is actually pretty tragic now when you listen back to it, eh? It's like there's one song on there that you flipped over to get to, and you had to just like.
That's so true. Press the fast forward button. Oh man, that's so true.
When you used to record music.
Yeah. The mixtapes. Man, I used to be able to Rick D's on Radio Top 40 or whatever.
Top 40.
And it was like the trick was to try to cut him off, just get the start of the song just when he finished, and then cut the song before he started again.
you didn't use a little piece of paper, did you? A little piece of paper to kind of put on the cassette tape and just to record. Did you do that?
No. What do you mean?
Do you remember that one? They used to kind of these little pieces of paper, and we just put it on the tape, and just to make sure we could record or something. It was back in I think it would have been the early 90s.
I remember
the stolen ones.
I know. I remember. I remember you get the tapes, and if you got your best one, and if you didn't pop, there's some plastic things that you had to break off, and if you broke those off, no one could tape over it. But if every now and then you'd forget to do it, and you'd come in and someone had taped over it, it's like, oh man, I worked so hard on that.
Okay, man, that's so hard.
That was editing back in the day.
Yeah, that's right, it was.
Does it make you grateful that you were born in a time before the social media, before the technology, where you would be in a waiting room at a doctor's, and now you have to talk to someone because there's nothing to do? You can't just resort to that default of looking at your phone.
I mean, look, everyone adapts to every situation, right? So we would all have adapted. I loved growing up. I think there's some pretty good evidence around the need for people to be bored or kids to be bored, right? I think in terms of actually the creative process and just your brain development, I'm pretty sure I'm not making that up. There was a friend of mine's a psychiatrist, so I remember him telling me something like that. But boredom, it's proven that boredom is good for you. And I think that one of the things about social media, you're never bored, right? And TikTok is the worst, right? But it's that shortening of going really thin and sideways rather than going really deep, and the ability to concentrate on a linear, deep sort of idea and follow that through, I think is always going to be a valuable asset, and that's what I hope we're not losing from society, because or if we are, we're depriving people with good brains of that, which is like actually what you need. You need to be able to think a problem right through, get to all sides of it, and stay on point or on task to see enough of it to solve it in your own head, which I fear a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I loved growing up in my generation. I'm sure people love growing up in now as well. But the one thing I'm probably I find most discomfort in at the moment is, and I don't want to sound like a stale old white dude, but I have this discomfort around the sort of the cancelling of people through word mistakes, or idea mistakes. Yeah. And I think, we were talking earlier around, I think one of the most dangerous things in the world is that fear of making a mistake. So therefore not offering forward an idea, or not trying to explain yourself or to say something clearly, and then for fear of you getting it wrong or sounding like you've got it wrong. And that to me is that bottling up of must be happening on a mass scale, and I think that's the most unhealthy thing I see. And I'm glad that I'm sort of old enough in the tooth that I still fear it a little bit. I don't want to say the wrong thing or sound off. But if you're going to get sort of crucified for it as a 15-year-old on social media for getting the idea wrong or asking the wrong question in the wrong context, it's pretty. Yeah,
it's cutthroat.
Yeah,
pretty cutthroat. Especially that awkward silence there.
Yeah. Like what he did there.
I saw that. Private joke here.
Oh, mate. But I agree. Obviously, it's just semantics. And people, in terms of kind of cancelling, because you said a specific word or said something they might be offensive to someone else. And it is. I think it's quite alarming that cancel culture. And you mentioned that people don't feel empowered or feel the freedom to kind of voice their opinion or share something, and hence why it brings forth a lot of fear, like, I can't do this. And like you said early on, imagine how many people who can't articulate or explain what they're really feeling or want to say in a mass scale, because imagine all that stuff happening in their head, like, I can't say this, this is wrong, this is bad, this is not good. And so that's can be quite debilitating.
Well, not only that, you get people on social media will, hiding behind a non-diplomat, will say stuff that they would never say sitting here with the four of us, right? There's probably someone criticising us out there right now, who if they were sitting here, they'd be all love and peace, right? But like they're having their crack, and it's like that's the thing, right? It's like how have we created this monster where someone nameless person can get 100,000 followers and no one actually knows who they are or what they stand for, and they can be critiquing people who've actually done stuff or I don't know.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know, because obviously people are entitled to their own opinions, and you're going to get a lot of trolls. Even, you're right, I think we might get some people trolling us on what we're talking about right now, but it doesn't matter. I think it's just opinions. And I think for me, in terms of, if that's, you get some people, some keyboard warriors, Dion.
Well, I think there's good things. Like, I think there's so many good things. Like, right, you go back and you watch some of the comedy of like when we grew up, right? And I watch it now and I'm like, really, I'm not even sure that was ever funny, like in reality you go back in. So there's a lot of good that has come with, like, the airing of, like, making people feel difficult or belittling them or whatever, and bullying culture or just sexist culture and all those things. All of those we've developed and we're growing and evolved in a much better space. But it's just the overlay of being able to make a mistake. You have to be a young person and be able to screw up, get the wrong idea, say the wrong thing, and not have that ruin your next 10 years of social media or whatever.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And I think, but it's not even just in the language, it's just in things that you do as well. And I think unless we experience that, unless we allow people to fail and pick themselves up, because that's where the learning is. I mean, I don't know, believe it if you want, but it took Thomas Edison so many thousands and thousands of times before he made the light work, and he was given the space to do that. And so for us, why do we prohibit our children, ourselves, from making these mistakes? Because you honestly don't know what you're about to discover. And then even with language, I think it's healthy for us to learn how to have someone disagree with you. I mean, there's all these like emotions that are floating in. You're then dealing with your own threat around that whole moment. People need to be given the opportunity to sit in that space and work through it.
I read a really powerful thing once, and it was something along the lines of like, you have to be really careful that you're not being intellectually dishonest when you're having a conversation or an argument. And what it had all these guidelines around what that meant, but it's not taking someone's point and taking it out of context and blowing it up and belittling it when you realize you really know that wasn't his whole point or her whole point, but you're exploiting this, and and it was so and there was a whole bunch of other parts to what intellectual honesty is.
I'm looking at my wife by the I'm sorry. Sometimes like you want to win the argument versus trying to actually find the truth.
100%, 100%. And it's like but if you're intellectually honest and you let and open and you listen, and you're prepared to listen properly, then you can really learn and have these amazing conversations, right? Where you can really get somewhere, and you might actually get somewhere where you still end up polar opposite, but you're going to know each other and understand each other so much better, right? And so that, that intellectual honesty is something that I think is what's missing from the dialogue today. Like if we all agreed to just really try to be intellectually honest, like we argue about stuff, and our politicians, right? I mean, it's just that all of them, right? Doesn't matter which side of the spectrum, but they're all just totally dishonest in the way they're debating and arguing a point. And it's like, that doesn't help, because if we're trying to genuinely solve societal issues and move ourselves forward as a nation or as a race, as humans, then it's like the more honest we can be, the better the better place we're going to end up, right? We've got to try and get ourselves elevate that conversation level somehow.
It sounds like there's an element of like humility that needs to come when having these conversations, knowing that I might be wrong. There is a small chance that I'm wrong and that you have something to teach me. So,
like it's interesting. Like my wife's Samoan, and so I was thinking, how do I explain my experience of marrying a Samoan person? It's like I honestly can't say that I understand Samoans any better having married a Samoan. Like I understand my wife,
cool.
But I think you have to sit with people and listen and hear their point of view and understand. And like I probably understand Samoans better through my father-in-law, and because his thinking and his way of thinking is very different to mine, like it's a different process, but you have to listen, like in order to get there. And I still don't even know if I have understanding. I just know I just know I'm different, and we come at things in a different way. So
yeah, that's cool. I love that. just being intellectually and emotionally honest, right?
I think
you
so.
have to be both.
Yeah,
But even that, like just being intellectually honest, so that you're not trying to fake it
Well,
in a conversation, that you're actually saying, actually, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Or
I had a friend also say once, and I was having a heated debate, and I felt like I was winning this conversation, and she goes, "Dion, I just think you feel like you need to win this conversation," and I was like, I really hurt. I was like, oh, but I was winning. And then I was like, but it's not about winning, is it? It's like, it's about having a conversation. It's like, yeah.
No, it's about winning. It's about winning. That's a competitive side.
You're a winner, man.
You're a winner,
the black caps, man. The black caps is about winning, man.
But then I instantly, isn't it funny? I instantly felt like, oh man, I'm a bully. I'm terrible. I haven't been listening.
That's what she wanted,
Yeah.
bro. That's what she wanted.
Oh, there you go, man.
But now she won. No, she was right. I was like not listening. I was not having a conversation. I was trying to win. Yeah.
Oh man, that's a hard case.
so in intellectual honesty, that's also allowing people to disagree, eh?
I reckon that's the essential that
Yeah.
we can all disagree,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
it's like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not bright enough to have all the answers or to even really know where I stand on most things. You know, like I think I know where I'm standing, but like if you put a reasonable argument to me and I'm all ears and I'm like, well, actually, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if I fully agree with that because all of what I've all thought for the last 50 years is different, but hard to argue with what I just heard. You know, like if you got to be able to think all that through and put yourself in the other person's shoes and see where they're coming from and understand, like, how would I act if I felt that way? If I, we're all just coming from a perspective and have a story, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you throw all that into the middle, and it's like who's right, who's wrong? There's no right or wrong. It's like it's somebody's. There are rights, and there's people who have wronged. To things, but like ultimately, where we're trying to get to is a fair and equal and good society where it works for the most people we can. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's about widening perspectives, eh? It really is.
Yeah, but
yeah, that's cool.
It's
cool. I like that. I like what you just said because I think how often do people kind of think this is the one track kind of mindset. This is whatever I say is truth. Whatever I do, this is the way it is, without being open minded. And I like that. I think more people need to be open minded in terms of, oh, is it true? And question their own thoughts and their own processes, and not be proud enough to say, oh, maybe I got it wrong. So that's cool, man. I like that, man.
I think it's I think you have to have it's a funny thing, isn't it? Like I feel grateful that on my journey I've had just enough success, because I think that you need a few wins on any level to get self-confident enough to have that to put those wins and get genuine sort of, I guess, self-confidence and comfort that you. And I think if you haven't had a few wins along the way, it's much harder to get out of battle mode, and be a bit more open. But sometimes, well, maybe not. Sometimes it might work the other way. But I think you've got to, the more we can be open. If you put 5 people with different opinions around the table and sit there for long enough, they'll come to agreement and end up, they certainly, and that's my thinking of it anyway. I think we're conditioned to work together as opposed to pull apart.
Yeah, find common ground, eh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's true. I like it. I like that perspective because often, I think people always want to stand on their grounds. This is what I believe. This is my truth. This is what whatever I say is right. And too often we always combating and just kind of fighting of difference of opinions. And so it is about agree to disagree and still have the conversation and be civil towards each other and still be open minded. Because I really believe sometimes we can get stuck in the rut of where, oh, no, I'm not going to shift because this is what I believe, even though you know very well, man, that person's got a good argument, and maybe there's some truth in that, and not being proud enough to say maybe they could very well be right. So there's some things to think about. That's cool. I like that.
Well, also I think there's a fear that you're giving up too much. There's that sort of like, well, what if I come with an open, mind, and that someone takes they take me over there, and they don't come with an open mind. There's that. But you just got to be bold with it, eh? I think my favorite thing in the world is is robustness. Like, I think that's the best word you can ever. With my kids, I look at my kids and I'm like, I just want my kids to be robust. I don't want them. I want them to be able to think their way out of a problem, talk their way out of a situation. I want them to be able to, deal with failure, and deal with success. I want them to be able to have some level of ambition, but, be good people, and there's this robustness of character that we need to draw out of ourselves first. And I think we need to ask that of all of our people, like our kids, our friends, and then from there, then be kind to each other so that they don't have to be robust, at the same time, It's sort of like that duality of those ideas. Somewhere you get a really good mix, I think. I hope that could be a good mix.
Yeah. So when you say robust, are you saying thorough?
I think understanding that there's going to be knockbacks, understanding that there's going to be nothing is guaranteed, and that you have your own failings that you're going to bring upon yourself, and that's nobody's fault but yours, and understanding that sometimes someone's going to do you wrong, sometimes you're in the wrong place, sometimes you're not good enough, all of these things, but you have to be robust enough to deal with all that, because that's only a momentary pit stop along the way, and the next corner you go around, it all could run your way for a year.
Is it something parents would have to, like, how? Because you're right, we have to teach it, especially in this day and age. All these distractions, and God, you walk into a space now and there's like 5 screens there, like just pulling on your attention. Hey, like, you really have to be robust in this society today. But how do we teach that? Do we? I think that I've thought about this a lot. I think the best thing we can be is it ourselves. Practice it ourselves, and don't try to teach it. Try to be it. Try to display it. I think, because I think, I look at, I'm not bringing in. I always thought I was lazy, because my father was a farmer, right? So, and we had a timber mill, so worked really hard. And I had to work in the timber mill when I was about 15 through to about 17, and I was like, I need to get in that cricket team. and my father just would always say, man, you're so lazy. You're like, he's always having to drag me out of bed to go to work, and apart from the fact that I was just absolutely shattered after working in this, all these hard men. And I remember going away, and I've always had this idea I'm lazy, in my head. And then I went and played cricket, and travelled the world for 10 years, and just played games, I was like, I was just like, man, I'm so lucky because I'm so lazy. I'm so lucky that I get to just play games, And anyway, so I had this whole thing, and then I went and I started working in this, environment, and I was like, after about a year, I was like, man, I'm a really hard worker. I'm in before people, I'm working all day, I'm out but late. I was like working really hard, and I was like, I'm not lazy. And I was like, and then I realized I'd never been lazy. I just worked really hard at sport. I'd been, and I tell that story really just because my father, I had picked up my work ethic off my father, and just because all he did ever was work, right? He just got up and worked hard, and I was like,
as much as I didn't, I just sort of despised it, and he would say I was lazy. I think really what I saw was, if you work, right? He loved his work, and so you pick it up. But I think you pick up by watching, and we also learn from our parents what we don't want to be like, right? I think that's the other unspoken thing about parenting is they're judging us from the day dot, right? And they're going, that part of him, I ain't going to be like that. Or that, and you can sort of see it. And I'm like, I remember thinking that about my old man. I'm like, man, I ain't going to be like that. But like, you do pick up the good bits as well, I think. So, but I don't know. It's a long way of saying maybe it's a cop-out. But I think the best way you can show people or teach people is by practicing it yourself, and that can be like just not getting inflamed when when you've got every right to get inflamed because someone's wound you up or done you a disservice or being disrespectful or, in front of people, whatever it might be. And I think, it's natural to, when you've got the right to exercise it, but showing restraint and being robust.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one example. And I would love to say I can always do it, but it's not the case.
Yeah. I mean, we still need to show our children that we're human, and that, like you said earlier, we will fail, but it's about how we get back up and how we acknowledge it. And I think all of that adds to the robustness,
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I like that part. I had a kōrero with somebody this morning, and we're just saying how important it is to have your own power under control, and there's
that meekness, meekness. That, being able to regulate your emotions, control your emotions, especially when someone rubs you up the wrong way. Okay, and still be respectful, but still know very well, hey, I can chop you at the knees right now, but I choose not to.
I think, I think it's a really great. I love that saying, having your own power under control. It's like I mean, it's another way I heard it said was like, with mana comes great responsibility, and it's sort of like I think like, that if you have, had success, or if you've developed personal power, you just have it naturally. There's a responsibility that goes with it, right, and how you wield it. And I think, and it's the same with intelligence, right, or humor, or all of those things. Whatever your skill is. Knowing that there's a responsibility of going with how you handle it.
Yeah, no, definitely, and how you use it.
Well, speaking of robust, how about robust relationships? In terms of, obviously, you mentioned your lovely wife, Bernice Medi, the Civil Ferns. Well, tell us a little bit, because obviously the culture, the Samoan culture. Have you been able to kind of, you talked a little bit about it, but have you been able to kind of embrace a lot of the stuff in the Samoan culture, or finding yourself?
Well, our kids went to Aonga, so they went through preschool in Richmond Road. And as we've been back to Samoa probably 4 times, something like that. As a family, a pre and post family. So I feel like we see lots of Bernie's family, and lots of big cousins and relations and stuff. So I feel like I'm close to it. I also don't claim to I just like I like Samoan culture. I like being around Samoan people. I feel at ease. Probably more quite often with the women than the men sometimes. I find, which I feel like sometimes with the men I'm a little bit getting judged. I'm like just waiting. Do I have to prove something? But no, I find that my boys are at St. Paul's, and that's actually been probably the best way I've had developed male Samoan relationships outside of my brother-in-laws and father-in-law. And so it's like that's actually been a good experience for me, because I think I've got to understand that Samoan men are quite sensitive and actually quite soft in a way, which is probably the least understood aspect, I think, from Europeans understanding Samoan men, like, you know, that we tend to come up against. The first Samoans we come up against is on the rugby field generally, you know, and it's like, oh man, really? They look big. But like that was, you know, that understanding that I think like, I don't know, this might oversimplify it, but I think Samoans are quite poetic and sort of in a way, you know, I think language is really important, and would be my observation. And I remember seeing a year 13 boy get up at assembly when my son had just started St. Paul's, and he said this speech, and it was like the most sort of like amazing speech about being misunderstood as a Samoan boy and man, and I think that helped me the most. He was sort of saying these things around, you know, like, you know, what people see as opposed to what he was feeling, and all of these things. I wish I could tell it better than that. I'm doing him complete injustice, but it was an amazing speech and really moving. And I was like, I need to realign my expectations, you know, and stop being bravado and actually just have a normal conversation. And I think, you know, that's my boy's in 7th form now, year 13 now, so sorry, showing my age. But so it's taken a long time, but like now, there's some great guys that I've coached teams with and hung out with, and all through that experience, and I think like that's been a good learning curve. But I don't know. I feel like I just like the best thing I can say about my experience of my wife is loving being around people. Like, she's a people person, and that's rubbed off a bit, you know.
That's cool, man.
That's cool. That's awesome.
It's cool. And you're in the midst of 5 Samoan people.
Look at these sensitive boys. Look how sensitive they are. So soft.
You're making me sentimental now, dear. I want to cry now.
There you go, soft. I was kidding.
Ask my wife.
Yeah.
She'll say, yeah, you're soft.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
I love what you said earlier about the importance of winning.
Right.
You know, just the whole importance of winning and how it builds your self-confidence. And I know not everyone's going to be a New Zealand rep, you know, like, and I think just that message in itself is really powerful, especially for our men, you know, to kind of embrace those wins. And it doesn't always have to be big stuff, eh?
Oh, I think that's the thing, right? Like, that's why I think a journal is actually a good thing, because it can't always be a big thing, right? But it's like sometimes it's just dealing with that situation better than you dealt with it last time is the win, right? It's like, you know, not making the same mistake you made 2 times before and actually having learned upon it and going, oh man, I dealt with that so well. Or, you know, the little successes, a day, you know, there's that great She Had song was like, you know, it's been a day of tiny triumphs. You know, I love that line. It's like, a day of tiny triumphs is a great day, right? You know, it can be just having a awesome breakfast, you know, something nice happens, someone says something nice, you receive it the right way, you go to work, you have a good thing happen, you know, you have a nice phone call with your wife. Those, like, a day of tiny triumphs is winning, right?
Yeah.
And we don't stop and acknowledge that, and often we do, you know, like it's that classic law of, like, it's like social media is a classic, right? You can do a post and there's 100 people like it, and then there's one miserable sod says like, oh man, you think you rate yourself or whatever, and it's that one person who says something negative that you dwell on for the next 24 hours. It's exactly the same with like winning and losing. You know, we have a great day, and then at the end of that day, something minor but negative happens and it spirals, and then you don't sleep very well because you're worrying about the one bad thing. And it's like, so there's a bit of self-control needs to come in, I think, and that robustness coming back to that, and, you know, I guess sort of, you know, that managing the wins, you know, in a way, do you know, it's like, that's, I think, the key. We used to have a thing called form. We'd get into form or in the zone when you're playing cricket, and it's a really ethereal sort of space, but batters get it, and like basically it's this, you've practiced this thing over and over, got all this muscle memory, and then getting into that space, it's this combination of like all of the thought and the instinct and the clarity of your vision and clearing your head, and it's just being in this moment. It's like this floating little bit of mercury, and you've got to keep it perfectly positioned in order to stay there and just think of the ball and just react. And when you can do that, when you get in that zone, it's like the whole game slows down and it just becomes so easy. You know, it's like you can't you can't not hit the ball. You know, it's like it's just it's a different game. And the first few times it happens, like you know, it happens and you think, oh, it's amazing, and so you just blast everybody, and you sort of you cast, you smash, you know, you don't take care of it, you know, and then next thing you know, all of a sudden you just slip out of it, and then you don't even know how you even get back there. You know, it's like so hard to get back to that space
when you're out of it.
When you're out of it, and it's like that. And you don't. It's because you didn't care for it. You know, you're like just I'm going to get here all the time. This is going to be easy now. I've cracked it. And of course it's not, because you've got to balance all of this perfectly balanced. And it might be as simple as going out and having too many nights out, and not staying in, and you know, you've got to protect that form. And I think that's the true of our mental space generally. You know, like you can't think that you can just be carefree and not pay any attention to it and not keep it and keep that mercury stable and expect that it's just going to be all right. You know, I think you've got to sort of tend to it and keep it if you want to stay in form.
Yeah, keep it in check. So what do they call it, Dion? They call it being in a state of flow, eh?
State of flow,
State of flow, when you just, everything's just optimal.
It's, I mean, I definitely had it a couple of times, and like it's the thing like no drug you could ever take is as good as that, you know, like it's just pure. It's like it's a pure thing, you know, like the game, the experience of it is wonderful. It's like you're floating, everything's easy. You're the hamster inside the wheel, so it's a good feeling.
So when you say you only hit it a couple of times,
well, you know, it's what you change. You have it a number of times, but like at the top level, and where I benefited from it, and it affected my career. There's probably 3 times that I would say I got in form and was in that space and sustained it and played it at top level. You know, one was early on, and I sort of just, you know, flushed that one up against the wall. I was sort of like, yeah, I've made it. I'm just gonna. And then later it was like I got back, and I had injuries, and I got back, and then I sustained that for longer, and I probably dipped in and out of that one a little bit, you know, but I worked out how to stay there. But but no, it you know, the best players, the phenoms, they know how to stay there most of the time, right?
Yeah.
But the most of us mortals, it's like just lucky to dip in and out.
Mere mortals.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I think just, I mean, imagine if people were able to find that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Find that sweet spot and then know how to get there when they want to. God, that's powerful.
But I think it's akin to being happy in a way. You know, I think it's and I don't want to be too sort of twee about that, but like, I mean, I think being happy is the same sort of thing. It's like just allowing the good stuff in and protecting the good stuff out, you know, and maintaining a space and being sort of like grateful for all of the things that are going well and not caring about the stuff that's not, and just sort of like allowing yourself a bit of freedom is sort of like a wonderful thing that we can do, you know, like we can treat ourselves to that if we just pay attention to it enough. But we don't, it's easier said than done, right? Because we all get wound up in where's our career going, or, you know, who's beating us, who's earning more money, or who's like, you know, who's wound us up that day in the media or whatever, you know. We allow all these things that don't mean anything in.
Yeah.
Are there some potentially some tips generically, because this thing about form or flow state, it applies to not just cricket, it applies to anything almost, any activity or any Is there any tips, advice you could give to people trying to find that, trying to get into that flow state, trying to get into that form?
I think you've got to commit to it. I think the thing about and it's the thing about going deep on an idea as well, right? I think the thing that people won't talk about or won't tell you is to get good at anything on any level is lonely, because there's a commitment to it that means you miss out on a bunch of things, parties, social media, hanging out with the friends that, you know, whatever it might be. But like, if you really need, and in order to get good at something like whatever, you've got to practice it. It's just, and you're going to be shit at it, and some of the practice is going to be terrible, and it's going to be tiring and not even feel worthwhile. But you got to go through all those, like, you know, getting better at something is non-linear. It's like, you know, it's like up and down and 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but then all of a sudden it does get a little bit linear for a while, you know, and it's just like you sort of blast ahead over a period of time, and it's like all of a sudden you've slogged away for all this time and not got anywhere, and then all of a sudden you just move forward like 3 or 4 phases with it almost effortlessly, you know. And it's like, and it's those separation moments that like are what you're looking for, right? Because that's when you just go to another level, and there's a whole bunch of people playing at that level, and then you got to start all over again, learning what they're doing and how to compete against that sort of level of whatever that you're trying to get good at, you know. And each sort of stage gets lonely, and then, you know, and because it's like, well, how deep do I want to go? We had really Marwin, he's a personal trainer, had a really cool talk with him for my business. We do these little podcasts, and he talked about elite performance, optimal and suboptimal performance or training. And he said, like, you know, there's suboptimal, which is, you know, you can't get off the couch, and then there's optimal, which is like, you know, winning Olympic medals, you know. And he said, not in between there's this whole scale. And he said, like, but what people don't tell you is, like, every time you go above sort of like the middle or neutral, the further you get towards optimal, the more the trade-offs you have to make to get there.
Wow.
And it's like the question you have to ask yourself is like, well, what level of fitness or what level of anything do I want to get, and how optimal do I want to get at it? Because there's a trade-off at each next cog, you know. And so I think that's one of the things that people don't explain to you, you know. It's like, what are the trade-offs you're willing to make? And, you know, some people just don't want to make those trade-offs because it's going to impact their lives and their families or whatever. And so it's not a desirable place to become optimal, you know, truly optimal. We're in this world where optimal sounds like somehow suboptimal, you know, like we want to put a super optimal on the end of it. It's like, but like optimal is it. It's like, doesn't get any, optimal is the top. It's like the absolute peak. And so coming back from it is like, and I thought, I pondered over that. I was like, man, he's right. And I look back at my cricket career and I think, in a weird way, I reckon I got scared at a certain point of optimal, because I realized how much of a trade-off I was making somewhere along the line. And I think I realized somewhere that I was like, it was taking too much, you know. And so I reckon I pulled back a couple of cogs on it. I was happy with that. I popped my head up into it a few times, you know. And it's like, but I don't know.
That's interesting. What was the trade-off? If you don't be asking, what was the trade-off that you think? Oh no,
for me, it was a trade-off. Was was friends. Like a professional sporting environment. It seems like you're all friends, right? It's like you're playing with your mates. You're on tour with your mates for 4 months at a time. What can be better? But the real reality is the only thing you've got in common, in my instance, was cricket. Usually you've got some similarities in your background, but not necessarily. You know, I didn't have anything common with guys from Christchurch, and, you know, didn't know what their lifestyles were like. I didn't even, you know, same with Wellington. I grew up in Dargaville. No one knew what I was. You know, none of them had to work in a timber mill. And so I had like, and also you're competing for 11 spots. There's 20 of you on a team. You're competing for 11 spots. So, and even within the 11, you're competing for places, you know, like, or hierarchies. And so, like, it's a competitive world. It's not a friendly world. You make acquaintances and you are sort of friendly, but it's not your friends. It's not your you don't go and sit down with the guy you're competing with and go, man, I'm really having a bad day today. Can we go have a coffee and just talk about it? It's like, that never happened. I can tell
like,
you.
I got one up on you.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
And so the higher up you go, up the top, the more you're saying no to certain things. You're now really specializing. This goes back to what you're saying about going deep and narrow versus going wide and shallow, instead of appealing and doing lots of surface level stuff and lots of things. Find one or two specialty things that you want to specialize in and really try and focus in and knuckle down.
Well, I mean, if you want that. Yeah.
If you're trying to be elite at something, you need to sort of specialize.
I mean,
down.
like, you've got to be doing stuff. Like, there's that great, I don't know if you remember the Muhammad Ali movie about when he, the Rumble in the Jungle. There's a great, what's it called? When We Were Kings or something? I forget. Anyway, there's a great movie. And the scene in it when it's 4 a.m. and he's out and the sun's just coming up and he's like got his tracksuit on and he's like running backwards and he's shadow boxing but going for a run. And the journalist is driving along the car, has got the thing out the window, going, why are you out here at 4? What? And he goes, because the competition ain't. And I was like, but that's the sort of stuff you're doing. You're trying to find all those little edges and you're trying to do stuff that the other guy isn't, or you're trying to, and let's try, I don't know, if it's just studying, if it's just getting good at medicine or math so you can make it into medicine or whatever, you're going to have to do things that 99.9% of the population just are never going to have to do to get into that class, right? And so if you need to get an A in maths to get into medicine and you're getting Bs, you're going to have to exponentially spend more time to get that A than you ever did to get to where you are right now. And so that commitment is not the same amount of commitment as you've already done. It's probably double. Yep. And so that means no nights out. That means no time playing sport after school. It means all of these things, right? So that's why that trade-off is like you work out what you want, and yeah, I don't know. It's like I dare I say, like, I think it's worth it to make it, but then it's also only if it's worth it to you. You know, so it's only your journey, and only you can decide that, right?
It's an individual way.
But I do think it's important that people know that that's a process.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise, if you know that that's the process, you can sort of get halfway and go, actually, no. And then you can change your mind and go, actually, no, I do want it. And, that's not, you don't make your mind and it's terminal. You can change how far up or down that ladder you want to go.
That's cool.
And you can, when you talk about sacrifices and trade-offs, like there's the time that you spend with family, which I think for, more collective societies, that could be, because I quite often hear people say that they fear not failure, but they fear success. And I don't know, what you've just shared there made me wonder if that's why they fear success, because they become someone different, they have to lose it, there's a loss to.
Well, there's also things there's also terrible things that you have to deal with within that, right? Because let's just say your father or your mother doesn't believe that you can do it and doesn't believe in what you're doing, and so they are not people that you can spend time with because you can't be around that energy or that negativity. And these are people that you love more than anyone else on the planet, and you just have to take yourself out of that environment or not spend time with them because they are throwing you out of that space that you need to be in. That's an extreme example, but that happens. And then the flow on from that is then you deal with when you're not, then you think you're a bad person because it's like, well, now I don't want to be around my mother. What sort of person am I becoming? And
that plays on you.
And that plays on you, and then flow, all of that. And so, and if you're doing this when you're young, you haven't got the coping strategies to rationalize. Well, my mother's not me, and if she actually knew what I was going through, she would understand. And and you don't have the worldliness to put that around in a box and deal with it. Yeah. So you have to, I don't know, push through.
Yeah. And I think because there's a cost, there's a cost at every stage. And I just wonder if you know what the cost is, especially when it's to do with family or loved ones, or you know, something that's quite meaningful to people that they don't want to let go of, but yet if you don't, you're not going to get there. That people know that they can even talk to try and get people on board as part of their team to push them up, as opposed to I got to drop you because I have a dream.
Well, you need that support, right? And you need like people to understand that that's what you're doing. And that's the commitment. And so if you fail, because you're going to fail, that like they don't. You just said, you're just going to fail, guys. It's part of it. Then you just need them to understand, and then for you to be able to go crying back to them, crawling back and knowing, I do need to spend some time with you, you know, or now I need you to understand it. And then know that as soon as you've picked all your toys back up and fix yourself back up, you're going to go straight back away from them and back over here and not go, and you know, and those, there's all of that, you know what I mean? It's like it's not and of course for some people that's just not a good way to be, you know. It's like you've got to be part of the family, you've got to bring the family with you, you've got to bring your friends with you, and you know, there are probably ways to do it, but like there's also, you know, some of it's not pretty, you know. So and if you know, if you're the first person in your family to become a All Black or to become a Silver Fern or whatever, then you know you're breaking new ground, right? So you're teaching you're teaching the people that have never done it how to deal with it. So you're almost taking on a whole bunch of roles, you know. Yeah, that's right. Especially for the first one, for that family, the pressure's different. Yeah, the pressure's way different. I have a question, and I asked this question because my son is 14 and he plays football, and they lose all the time.
Not all the time, but most times.
But most times they lose, and his coach keeps saying it's just like it's okay to. What does he say? He says.
I mean, in terms of he says a lot of things. But
no, but my son's like, you know, we always lose, and we're trying to buffer that. Like we're trying to be like, oh, you know, it's about learning the game. It's about da 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 da. But it's almost like there's this culture of it's okay to lose, and I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm probably the wrong person to ask.
From a youth sport perspective.
Well, I coached my eldest son's rugby team in year 7, and we lost every game in the season. So I was that coach.
How did you deal with that?
100% record. I just told everyone I had a 100% record. And they were like,
you never said win or loss.
Man, what an awesome coach.
I guess I'm just trying to build on that, the wins bit.
No, so, man, I don't, how do I answer this? Sport is about trying to win, right? And that's the game. That's where all the juice is. I think what we do need to do is teach our kids to respect good play and the opposition, and understand that you've got to be able to deal with winning and losing and the emotion of it. You know, I think that's what sport does offer. You know, that whole era which we sort of, you know, happened when we were growing up around that, was of not keeping score. It's like every kid knows what the score is, you know, like everyone's kid's clocking it, you know, in their head it's like 3 up. No, it's not. We're 4-2. It's like, no. And it's like, but no official score. It's like, but all it's teaching, that's removing the opportunity to talk about the real lesson, which is bad sports and dealing with winning and losing, right? Which is, that's what we were trying to solve. Those kids were losing the plot, not able to deal with the losing. And it's like, well, guess what? You're going to lose a whole lot in life. And if you're lucky, you'll win a bit as well. And actually, both of them can be pretty bad if you deal with them wrong. So, like, I think we just have to have more adult conversations around it. And the adults need to, including myself, is like, you know, like, but I think as a parent, the worst thing I find is, you know, you sort of attach your own emotions to the outcomes of games judged on what your kid's doing, and it's like got nothing to do with me, you know. It's like, actually, It's like, it's his thing. No one's judging me. It's their
Yeah.
outcome, and they don't probably care half as much as I think they do, or that I do. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't play to win and shouldn't enjoy the process of it. So I think, myself included, I think there's a bit of adults needing to learn how to deal with it and not impose their own thoughts. And I think that the coach is probably right in a way. It's not about the winning, but it sort of is as well. Like, you need to be able to win and know how to win and play to it. So it's sort of not playing for fun. It's playing to win, but the winning doesn't matter, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's, I think, the sweet spot.
Yeah.
It's cool.
I mean,
It's that you're more concerned with whether they try to win,
Yes.
and the skills they learn in that process, regardless of whether they win or not. That's not as important.
Yeah, 100%. That what he said.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
But,
But what are your thoughts, Dion? Because I like you, Caroline brought it up. Obviously, after a game, and they always choose the player of the day, and all of a sudden, everyone gets a certificate. You're one, even though you get smashed on the pitch or the field. Hey, you guys, winners here, everyone gets the player of the day. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I like the idea. So I think if there's kids who are just never going to get the player of the day, right? And there's a kid who should probably get it every day, right? Every game.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's a sort of a fool's paradise to give it out every weekend, unless you're going to give it to the guy who deserves it every weekend, right? But I think how I've done it, and I've coached a bunch of teams, is I just tend to not have a player of the day unless there's an unbelievable performance by someone, and that kid gets it once or twice a year, and it's usually the same guy, right? He's a superstar, or one of two superstars, and they should get it, because it's like that's sort of why they're there. They know it. But then also there's the kid who has been the shit kid all year, and now he's just had his best game ever, and everyone acknowledges it, and that guy should get it that day. And it's like, but in between, I think it's like you just acknowledge the people who've done. You acknowledge the game and the play, but not have the awards. It's like you don't have to have an awards after every game. It's like but we have a talk after every game, and we say, well done. This is what we did well today. These guys, Richard or Sione, that tackling today was amazing. Even though he dropped every ball it was thrown his way, but the tackling was amazing. So you can you pull out all of those positives, but you talk about like what we were trying to do as a team and where we can do it better. And it's like, hey, reality is it was only Sione that was tackling today, right? So everyone else, you guys need to tackle next week, or whatever.
That's cool. Cool.
yeah.
I like you said that, because often I said so many times, this is your reward for this and that.
But it becomes mean. Kids do love it, right? They do. Like, everyone likes getting an award, but it's got to be. They also understand, kids are smart, eh? Smarter.
Yeah.
Just your first word, nah.
But I like also, because you've said quite a lot of things in that previous statement, but even the message to parents, the parents of sports kids.
Oh, come on, Dion. Look what you've done. You opened up a can of worms.
Like that car ride, like, advice to parents, please, because you've been that that sporty kid that would play on Saturdays. Your parents would pick you up, and now you're a dad to 3 kids, and who are probably sporty as they're quite sporty too, and you and your wife probably support that just as much. So what is your advice to parents to build up the kid, and your advice to parents when they're like hooning in on all the things they did wrong?
Man, honestly, I've done everything wrong at some point. I've been a shocker, but I've also got it right a few times. I hate unfairness. I hate parents getting involved and creating an imbalance, I think let the kids sort it out, and let the coaches and the refs control it. So, the more we can step back from the sidelines and not get involved, I think is really important. You know, if you're an adult and you step into a group of kids, particularly young kids, you know, they step back from you, you know, and so I think you have to be really aware of that. It's like the kids are there. It's for them, you know, it's for them, and them, let them work it out. But it's that classic thing of, it's like the moment the opposition coach or the opposition parents do something, it brings out the, you know, all the other, you know, and then you're like, oh, man, if they're doing it, I've got to step up to the halfway line, right? It's like, otherwise, I can't let my kids get trotted over, and it's sort of true. We all feel it, right? It's that your blood boils, right? There's that, it's kind of like big South African guys yelling at the side. I'm bellowing, right? And it's like, man, he's scaring our kids off the lemon pitch, you know? He can impacting the game, and you know. And it brings out the worst on the other side. And, you know, I've been guilty of that so many times. And then you step up and you're like, you know, want to have a word with that guy or whatever. But it's like, but somehow we have to all just, you know, I don't know. I feel like my ambition for myself is just to sort of be calm as much as I can, and to show that calm, and just to let the kids do it, you know?
Yeah. So like when you were younger and you would play a game on Saturdays and you'd, you know, go home, like what does a kid need? What do they need after a game? Like after they've played a game and they get into the car, like, and then the parents, you know, come along and the parents are like, you know, emotionally all revved up. Like what does a kid need? Just so that, you know, who's quite sporty, what do they need after a game? Do they need our analysis? Do they need
criticism?
They don't. They've already forgotten about the result by the time they've got into the car.
But it's so true. It's so
Right?
true. It's
That's
so
a
true,
good
man.
thing, right?
Yeah, of course it is.
That's a good thing.
The game's in the moment on the park, right? And when you're young, I mean, you don't give two hoots once the game's over. I mean, did I get, you know, like, I don't know, are we going to go and get a pie on the way home, or what? Did I play well enough for a pie? That's my question I had, you know, like, and if we, you know, generally if we drove too fast, we're going too fast when the bakery's coming out, I'm like, I didn't play well enough.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's even that sort of stuff, eh? That sort of stuff that plays on a kid's mind.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
guess it's understanding, you know, like, you're right, the kids read behaviours. They read behaviours and they're wanting some sort of...
But don't freak out too much. They know what we like, so they know they've got us sussed anyway. So like, they know it's just you being a dick.
And they forget about that
And they're
too,
like,
right?
oh, dad's wound up today. It's like, man, it's like, it's like, so I don't know. I think have at least 3 kids, because then they're like, then they can all go and gather in the bedroom and talk about it together.
Have their own peer support.
Have a peer support group.
That's good.
I mean, look, I feel like far out. It goes back to being robust. Like I'm trying to be better as a parent on the sideline. I'm trying to show better, but like also my kids know what, you know, how competitive I am. They've had to play basketball and cricket and rugby against me since they were that tall, you know, so they know they can't win.
I was going to say, do you take it easy on them, or do you go...
You get hard out, man.
Yeah, that's a great
No mercy.
I'm always have that betwixt thing of like, I can't give them a win. I can't let them win. So but that would be like that. What would I be teaching them? It's like, you know. So it's like, and then it all happened, and then one day I got beaten in a sprinting race, and it's like, and then I thought, I must have had a off day, you know, like it's like, and now they all beat me, and now it's not even, now it's basketball, and now the cricket, and now I can't even play them in rugby. So it's all happened quite quickly that now I don't win at all. So yeah.
Oh man.
We won't interpret that.
No, I'm still working through it myself.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. It's funny because I don't know if I should say this live, but my dad never let my brother win, and I have a feeling that's a big issue for him today. That he just never let him win. But you know, can't help it if you're still got it.
mate, honestly, you got to take it. You gotta no, no one ever gave you the throne, right? No, I think like, I don't know. I feel like there's that classic thing of like, of course you let them shoot over you every now and then, right? When you're little and you give all that, but there is also that thing of like, nah, it's no one's gonna give you the win.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I'm gonna, I'll
Make
have
you
my
work for it.
yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm with your dad on it. I'm like,
Yeah, my brother never beat him in a race, and every now and then it comes out, and when he's not on a good day,
yeah. Well, my father was a boxer, so I have this he's a good boxer, and so I grew up. We weren't allowed to box in our house. My mother had banned it, and so it was like, and so Dad would come home from the farm and we had these cork tiles out in the laundry area, and so for quite a few years I'd meet him out there, and he'd have his work socks on, he'd take his work boots off, and there'd be cork tiles, and we just open arm sparring out there. And I just remember about 14 is this day, and I was getting quite good, and I thought I was, and I just open arm sparring, and I just clipped him, and he went to swim, and he slipped on his socks, and he went straight down, and by the time I put my hands above my head as if I'd knocked him down, he'd sprung back up, and either side of my head went poof, 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 poof. And I was like, and he got a fright, and I got a fright, and then it was like, that was the last time we ever sparred. And so like your brother, I still wouldn't take on my old man. He's 92 or 93.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, there's certain things that you just give them, right?
Yeah.
Just little increments.
Oh, was he a big fan of you when you were playing cricket?
Yeah, but he was silent. He never gave me any. He very little advice, some sound advice. I knew he always had my back, but he was never ever vocal, ever, and he never gave me. He was never critical. I know that. I was like, he was, in retrospect, he was hard. He was very hard, like I was never, there's never any outs, but like he was never critical. It was never critical of my performance, but he would be critical of my work ethic.
How did you take that with your dad? Sort of, you might go and have an amazing game, and he won't say anything about it. Did that play on you at all?
No, he was a silent farmer, stoic, so I knew he knew that I'd played well. He didn't have to say anything. Yeah, it was there, it was always evident but not spoken. Yeah. And I was always grateful. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I think it's nice to hear that support can be done in a non-verbal way.
Yeah.
Because you knew it was there, even though it wasn't maybe how another dad would have supported another kid, but you knew he was 100% behind you.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Because some people misinterpret that, and think, oh, they're not saying anything. Maybe they're not. When maybe
but it goes back to what we're talking about, robustness and intellectual honesty, right? I think in our own internal dialogue, as we develop, we've got to be honest in that development, and not blame, and not be victimized, and not and like be robust in our own appraisal of ourselves, because it's like, if you've got a non-verbal parent or non-emotional parent, it's like we know that's who they are. You can't blame them for that. You can't go, I wish they could be something that they're not. It's like, and so I think we're all smart enough. I honestly think we are all smart enough to, if we're disciplined enough to get that internal dialogue right, and it's laziness. We've all got the laziness in us as well to not to allow us to not get it right, if that makes any sense. That's what probably when I was talking about that robustness, I think that's the robustness I'm talking about. It's the robustness of like not letting yourself slip back into those habits of soft thought or bad.
Yeah, catching yourself before you get there, eh?
Yeah.
And it requires effort. And I think when I hear you say being lazy, it's that whole just being passive, oh, well, we're going that way, and we just keep going that way when we know we can intervene and we can pull ourselves back in. But it does require effort, it does require discipline, and it requires total honesty to be able to call yourself. And I liked what you said earlier about having your, being your own coach. I think you said you had a coach book. My coach book, that's what you said, right?
Yeah. Well,
Is that your journal?
Yeah.
So you called it your coach book.
No, well, yeah, I probably did, but it was just like a journal, and I just write all down my own coaching, sort of like what I'd picked up. But
that's cool. I mean, some people might not like the journaling idea, but the fact that you called it my coach book, I was like, is that another way of rewording skincare? No, but it's cool.
Well, I think you just have to find a way to make stuff work, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I think, but being your own coach, I just think one thing about today is YouTube, right? Is you can go onto YouTube and look up, and any philosopher from the history of man, and you can find Stoicism, or you can find Nietzsche, or you can find, Socrates, and pick out the bones of all of these amazing thinkers who have all been there before us and wrestled with all of the stuff we're wrestling with through the history of time, and it's all there on YouTube in soundbite chunks that you can watch for 2.5 minutes at a time, or 10 minutes if you can bear with it, and then go and write it down and go far out. That right there applies to me right now. It's like, what a time to be alive. Like, we had all those encyclopedias that used to sit on
Britannica,
dust. It's like never opened, right? Never. I had no idea what was in any of them, right? And it's like all just on a click of a button there somewhere now, but I just think that self improvement is exactly what it says on the label. It's like self improvement, and I think like it's the best journey you can be on, right? So now's the time.
Yeah. Don't need to have a Gilbert Enoka on your in your home. So.
Well, I think what we all need is some good people, right? Like to be around. Like if you want to change your habits, you've got to change the environment and the people, right? And I mean, this amazing facility you guys have set up here. I mean, you guys are helping so many people in so many ways that you probably don't even understand. But like, I can imagine. People just need a safe place with safe people to come and talk and bounce some of the ideas around, but they also then need to take that away and create their own safe space for that in their own accessible world, and then come back and tap in again, right? And go back out and build it out a bit more,
Yeah, no, you're right. We do need to have that, because that's when our best thinking happens. That's when we can fail. That's when we can say things that may rock other people's foundations, eh? You can do that in a supportive space, a bit more freely.
Well, I think also like you do it less when you're around people, because you can hear it thought out, right? And you don't have to say it and make the mistake, because you're listening, and you're learning as you're listening, and I think mostly we just want to be learning and around, that's what most people want to be around, right? The guy the Bruce Plested guy started Mainfreight, and he's like been a bit of a business mentor at times, and obviously this book's amazing business, but he always said people just want to be useful, and it's his sort of insight on people, so make people feel like they're being useful in their job, in their life. That's what most 99.9% of people are just. That's what they want, right? We just want to feel like we're making a difference, adding value, doing something worthy.
Yeah, that's so true. Like that's the question, that people ask even after they've succeeded is, why am I here? Like, what is my purpose? And it's the $1 million question that people ask at every different phase of their life, thinking that it's changed, but it hasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, Dion, man, I think tonight has just been obviously a lot of insights. Been so cool, brother. obviously you don't even know us from a bar of soap. Like, who the heck are these guys? Who are these 5-star Moors? Or what have I?
Is this live? Are we on TV? Is people going to watch this? You haven't been recording, have you? What's that red light? I thought we were on pause.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, bro. It's really insightful. And a lot of the things you've been talking about in terms of obviously safe space. I think, and it's kind of something that people's been kind of talking about nowadays. When people want to create a safe space, everywhere you get a safe space, and I totally agree in terms of safe space. And so the hope is that this place has been safe for you. And I think in order for this to be a safe space, you need to feel safe. And hopefully you felt safe having the Talanoa, having the corridor with us, and sharing some of your snippets or some of the things that you've done in your life thus far and your journey. I said, brother, man, thank you. Thank you for the conversation, but also thank you for your insights, and thank you for one of the things I'm going to take away from this is intellectual honesty and robust. It's just been cool, bro. Being cool, just and being able to listen, to really listen to someone's perspective, and be open-minded, and not always having to be the one to win all the time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's what an awesome conversation. So props to you, man.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. It has obviously been a safe space. I can't even remember where we wandered off into. So hopefully, But I've really enjoyed meeting you guys, and thanks for having me. And I just props to all the work you guys are doing. It's awesome. So keep it up, and glad to have been part of it in a small way.
Oh man, thank you. Oh, did you guys want to say anything?
Oh man, we're grateful for you coming. Everything that Pete said, I completely agree with. It's cool. I really didn't expect the conversation to go down the sort of path that it did, but it's so cool because it's
so
like
cool, man.
There's this whole philosophical side of you that people don't know about. But a quick question. Going back to how you pivoted from the 42 below and you sort of started up your own thing. You saw the guy with the cream.
Yeah.
How did you go from seeing that guy, having that idea of seeing him with the cream? How did you, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs or people that have an idea but they don't even know where to begin? What would you say to them? How would you...
Oh, don't begin.
That's a good one.
Say it again. Nah.
Oh man, I don't know. It's like it all seemed like a good idea at the time. I remember I'd done all this work, got it all, and then we sold our house, and we bought a smaller house, and I took a bunch of money out and had to start this thing up. And I remember I spent my first $50,000 on it was plastic. It was literally just on plastic, like plastic tubes and plastic bottles. And I remember just walking around Auckland like in a daze, with sick in my stomach, going, how am I going to tell my wife? How am I going to tell my wife?
Oh my gosh.
I spent $50,000 on plastic. It's like, and I don't even know if it's, I hope it's like printed right, It's like,
Oh my God.
and I just remember thinking, oh my God, what have I done? And anyway, but man, I think you have to just have no other option. If you've got any doubt, if you're thinking about it, then I sort of think don't do it. I think it's like you've got to be so driven to it that no one can stop you doing it. And it's that level of commitment, but at the same time, just know that it's all just problem solving, and you will solve the problems. And so the as much as I say don't, the actual piece of advice I would say is just start. Like that's actually the best piece of advice, because once you start, you'll solve all of the problems, and you'll have all the headaches, and then and you just go. But just start, give it a go, and and I don't know, it's about find some people to bounce off, and I would also say that no one will understand what you're trying to do, like your mother won't, your mates won't. They'll all sort of say, oh yeah, go for it, but that they're not. They're like, what are you doing, mate? You've got a good job, you've just studied, you got a law degree. Why are you giving up law to go and do this? Why are you going, or whatever it might be. But if you're driven to it, just start, particularly I think if you're young and you have an idea and it feels worthy, and and that you feel driven by it. You know, it's like life's short. Have a crack.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Based on what you know about it, would you, and you could do it again, would you still do it?
Be honest.
Yeah, I would. My trade off is, I had a big corporate job. Not that I deserved one, I might add. I fell into it. I got lucky, and through a series of events, I ended up in this big corporate job, earning more money than I'd ever earned before. And, you know, had a flying first business class and, you know, all those things. And then the trade-off of going and setting up your own businesses, I look at the people who are still doing that and I'm like, man, look how much money they must be earning now. And but they're answerable to their boss. They've got to send emails at 6 o'clock at night on Fridays. They've got someone, you know, banging on, they fighting over which car park they've got at work every time. Then, you know, they're stuck in traffic. I'm able to coach my son's rugby teams. I'm able to walk out of the office, walk into the office. I work at midnight. Sometimes I don't work at all. You know, I probably work harder than but I'm my own boss, and that's freedom that I can go and do all of these other things. And the trade-off is like, you know, I've got a small business that I'm trying to make valuable, but I'm not paying myself a massive salary. You know, I'm paying myself enough to live on, and you know, trying to grow my staff and do all of those other things. So there's trade-offs, but I would do it all again because
Cool.
You know,
That's how you're wired.
Yeah, that's how I'm wired. Yeah.
Too competitive, bro.
You're a winner. You're a winner.
Well,
That's cool.
also it's not complete, right? Like I haven't completed it, so it's still a live thing that I have to finish. Yeah, so you know, that's also part of it. Like I feel compelled to finish it, make it worth something. You know,
What's the finish line? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think either have the business so that I can step out of it and it be a cash business, you know, where other people are running it, but I'm sort of, you know, a director or something and playing
in Fiji somewhere.
Yeah, playing dinner hour or whatever it is. Or to build it up and be able to sell it as a going concern, you know, and that I'm proud of. Yeah, which arguably I could do that at any stage, but like I feel like the business, there's some real basic goals of where I want the business to get to, you know, in terms of our overseas side of business, and get one of those distributors to really sort of be cemented as a second offshore hub, and then once that's done, I think then I've built a good business.
Yeah, you put your hands behind your head and do that dance again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's
I don't know.
cool.
I'm not sure, but anyway.
That's cool.
but-
Props.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're such a cool dude, by the way.
Hard out, 100%
So
cool dude. Man.
having this conversation with you and seeing a totally different side of you. I love your, you've obviously had quite a lot of great opportunities. Like, it's almost like you've had such an awesome life. But what I love is that you don't take it for granted. You know, you really do embrace it. I love how you talk about your family and your whānau and your wife. And I guess, you know, you're obviously quite autonomous in your own right. You know, you have your own way of thinking, you have your own way of doing things, and that's cool. But I love how you talk about your wife. I think that's so awesome. And so big ups to Bernice as well. Said her name right, eh?
You need to get her. She'll probably tell you the other side of the story. This is like pretty one. You know?
She probably like, oh, man, he's lying, he's a liar.
But I guess, you know, because I remember watching this. I think you did like a Ironman race.
Yeah.
And you guys were on an interview, and I watched her like giving you bananas during
it was a 24-hour race that way, and it took 29 hours. I was like, this ain't no 24-hour race.
But she was all hands on, eh? She was all hands on, like getting you to get out of one outfit to like one code into the next code. And I think, you know, how, and I don't think we, the support that a wife gives, you know, their husband. I love that you've spoken about that. And yeah, And so if there's any other things you'd like to say about her, because, you know, I think most women want their husbands to be, to have wins, eh?
Yeah.
We want our husbands to have wins. And so, you know, from a, just maybe a perspective around that, like what have you received from Bernice, and I guess in terms of that, to help support Awhi, your dreams and goals?
Yeah, well, actually, she's now back in the workforce, and she's got a really great job with Hyundai Group. So she's sort of like in their management team. She sort of runs their marketing and HR, and she's got a really good role. And so she's actually working longer. She's now back 10, where I was 10 or 12 years ago, and I'm like, I'm sort of really proud of where she's got to as well. Like, I think. But I only say that because I feel like, you know, there's roles and there's give and take and roles. I think, you know, she's been so good to me, such a great wife. I mean, we have a great relationship. I really, and she's just a fun person to hang out with. But, you know, she's also been just this amazing mother. And I think the moment you see your wife give birth and realize you know, that whole process and just the motherhood that comes and follows with it, it's like, I think that changes everything, right? It's like there's just this, like, I don't know, that's a humbling experience as a male to understand just how useless and meaningless we are to the whole process, you know. It's like, true. It's like, oh man, we are really just on the sidelines. But I think, you know, also she's just done, you know, our younger son's 13, so she's sort of given up 10 years or largely to raise our kids, you know, whilst I've been able to, you know, set up my own business and do all of that. So she's been amazing, both supportively but encouraging. And, you know, as you say, she's allowed me, she knew that if I had stayed in corporate, like, it would have destroyed me, you know, like, I'm just not cut that way, you know, like, and so, you know, to have the confidence and the wisdom to let me give all that up and us collectively to take a financial hit and then just get on with it and not even, she's never ever, you know, I've never had one what if from her, or you should have, or you said you'd do this. You know, it's all just like, we're just on the way, you know.
That's
so
cool.
I'm just grateful for that. But
so what was her response when you did the 50K spend?
I never told her. She still doesn't know. She'll write. I mean, it got much more than 50K after that, I can tell you. But like,
was there some one side?
I was just like, guys, I was sat across from the dinner table and like,
oh my god!
Just held my breath. I was like, no.
You know what's gonna happen now, Dion? Once you watch this, you're gonna get the jandals, bro.
I doubt it.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, no, watch that jandal.
Oh, that's so cool. No, thank you, Dion. It's been a pleasure.
No, yeah, thanks.
Absolute pleasure, man. And all the best for your endeavors in 2024 and with the business. Triumph and disaster and your family, bro. So props to you. Thank you so much. But every guest that comes on, we always give them a gift. We always give them a bit of a caricature or a cartoon of how we envision them to be. And also champagne as well. Champagne to continue the celebration, celebrating your success.
All right.
Brother, this is on behalf of the Mandate team.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And this is for you, brother.
Oh, wow. Who drew that?
That's Patia.
Far out.
One of his many talents.
Oh, man.
Actually, like really freaky close.
Oh, man. So yeah, hey.
Bit of a steely. Is that that's blue steel right there, right?
Yeah. That is
That's like the.
But man, thank you so much, brother.
That's amazing.
Thanks. Hey, no, that's not. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome.
But yeah, just what we still got you here, brother. Is there anyone that you can think of that would be ideal to come on the podcast? You think, man, this person would be awesome. Who will be?
Bar your wife, of course.
Of course.
Yeah,
you do need to do she can call me out on all of my.
After she watches this, yep.
She'll be like, oh, she'll be calling you to come on. She'll be like, I need to come on and correct some of this. Oh man, who would be good? I'll come back to you with it, but there will be. Have you spoken to Di Henwood?
Oh no, the stand-up comedian.
Yeah, he's not well, and so he's. But he is a wonderful guy, just an amazing human being. And if you could get him, he'd be all over it. If he's well enough, he'd do it for sure. He's
Awesome.
he's just been having chemo and stuff, so he might.
That's
right. So mate, he talk about guys with wisdom and insight. He's like just sit back and pretty much just listen to him. You know, he's like got stories. He goes off on. He'll take you on tangents.
He's got cool energy.
He'll go deep. He'll go deep.
Yeah. He'll definitely go deep. Yeah,
That's cool.
No, he'd be cool. I don't know. Hey, it's like it's a tough one, isn't it? Like it's like those little. You need a journal for podcast people because it's like every now and then they pop up. Gilbert Anoka.
Oh mate, that'd be cool.
Mate, that dude's the wisest sage in New Zealand. I
Has
swear.
anyone podcasted him?
Mate, I'm sure not. I mean,
How do you get hold? Because he is.
I'll give you his number. He's like he would do it for sure. He'd be all over it.
Oh,
Yeah, for sure.
Gosh.
Talk to him, please.
Yeah. He'd be amazing. He is awesome.
Yeah,
Like-
I hear about his work quite a bit, and
Oh,
but never
he's-
the specifics.
Oh, he's incredible. He's Rarotongan descent, but he played volleyball for New Zealand, so he sort of comes from that background. But he, I want to say, I think that him and his brothers got maybe something happened and they ended up maybe like in a borstal or something at some point. So he had quite a challenging upbringing, but he's just done these amazing things. He's like incredible and like.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful man, you know. Like he'd be awesome.
Oh,
Oh
wow.
man, that'd be
God, that
awesome.
would be
Yeah, actually, he'd be if you can only get one, get Gilbert. He's
Yeah.
amazing.
Okay, Gilbert and Bernice.
Yeah, and Bernice. Yeah.
Yeah.
She would be
So
awesome.
we'll get your wife, and then we'll
Actually,
get
funny.
you guys to
Just a
come
real
on.
funny little story. But Gilbert was working with us and the netball team at the time, and like I had met Bernice on this night out, but I never got her number, and I was like. And so I was thinking, I quite like that girl. She's sort of like got this good energy. And I was like, how am I going to get a number? And I was like, I bet Gilbert's got her number. So I ring up Gilbert Anoka and I'm like, get his answering machine. And I'm like, so I go, Gilbert, I was just talking to Stephen Fleming and we were just wondering, because you're working with the netball team, like, you know, maybe we should get together with them and swap notes. And I was wondering, do you have Bernice Mini's phone number?
Did he give it?
Did he give it?
He goes, so we go back and I missed his phone call back and there's this message and he goes, Dion, Bernice's number is, she's a really great lady. I think you'll get along. So he saw straight through it.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh wow! Is that how you guys connected?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's all down to Gilbert. So there you go.
Did he come to your wedding?
He didn't come. Did he come to our wedding?
Shut up.
Yeah, shoot. He would have been invited. I can't remember. Maybe he was away with. I can't remember now. I know the other guys. Yeah, I don't think he did come. Yeah, I can't remember now. Actually, it's 22 years ago.
It's not that long. Come on.
Oh, man.
Don't say that
Yeah,
before we start saying 32. Stop.
shivers. How long?
No, I'm just saying let's keep it in the 20s.
20s is like
And then call it.
Yeah.
And then call it quits.
Oh man, thank you so much, brother. Thank you.
Man.
Oh, good.
Appreciate
Right.
it.
Well, I'll go back and get told off. I'll be probably getting the jandal when I get home. So, where have you been? She said she'll be like, "Where are you going?" I was like, "Pepito." She's like, "Oh yeah." see what happens. I was
Hey,
like,
you've got proof that you went
yeah,
somewhere.
that's right.
Yeah, awesome, man. But thank you once again, brother. But as usual, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Look forward to your other comments. And as usual, brothers and sisters,
Refine.
Unlock.
and take charge.
Mandate.